All right. Hey, this is Pam Perry, and I am here with the author of Soul Food. If you can see this right here. Yeah, it's going the right way. It is actually Dr. Robert L. Wallace. And so before I bring him on and introduce him, let me tell you a little bit about how I actually met him probably almost 20 years ago.
Right.
And he signed this book. And during the coronavirus thing, and things were just really getting tight, and people had to be in a lockdown. And I went through the process of how I organize, and just was going through books and just really taking some time to see what was there. And there were some books that I was sending to mentees, and then there were some books that I would say, oh, let me pull this out again. So it was really tough because I wanted to send this to a mentee because I wanted them to have it. But then at the same time, I was like, no, I want to reread this again. So I said, well, I'll just get them a new one and I'll keep this one signed. And the book was so on point for what's going on right now. And I wanted to bring you on. And so I reached out to you a couple of weeks, was stalking you, trying to reach you. And I know a lot is going on. And then I think in between that time, I heard that you actually put your head in the race to be a mayoral candidate for Baltimore. I was like, okay, there's so much going on. I said, but it had to do with 52 principles for Black entrepreneurial success.
That's right.
And within this book, though, because I work with authors and speakers, and I adore them, especially African American authors. And so people like Earl Graves, actually he wrote the book How to Succeed in Business Without Being White.
Sure.
Kelvin Boston, Smart Money Moves for African American.
Absolutely.
Love Kelvin. Dr. George Frazier, love him, one of my mentors. Success Runs in Our Race and Race for Success, right? Dennis Kimbrough, probably all these are friends of yours, right? Thinking Rich, a black choice. Claude Anderson, Black Labor, White Wealth. Cheryl Burchard, good friend of mine, The Black Woman's Guide to Financial Independence, and also wrote Sister CEO, which is my other favorite. And then my other personal mentor for PR is Terry Williams, The Personal Touch. And that's really what she's all about.
Absolutely.
And on this list, which was like a best-selling list, was the book by you, Black Wealth Through Black Entrepreneurship.
Right. My first book. That's right.
That was it. And it was on this list. And so I looked at this list and I said, I have spoken to every person on this list. I know them personally. I've interviewed them. I said, but not Dr. Wallace. And I don't know why I had that list in this book, right? I save everything because this is like from 2000, okay? It's
wow.
Like from 2000. And I said, 20 years later, I said, I need to talk to him. And I had no idea that all this would be going on right now.
Sure.
Okay. I had no idea that the world will be going through this pandemic, that things will be shutting down. Our governor just said that our school system has to be shut down for the next, throughout the year, just shut down completely. But I thought, looking at this book, I said I wanted to talk about the principle of managing the ride and spiritual fortitude.
Right.
And so those were some of the things that just stood out right away. I said, this book is for now. So for those of you who don't, I've just gushed all over, right? Dr. Wallace, now, let me read the official bio, okay? Robert L. Wallace is an internationally known entrepreneur, author, and business consultant and keynote speaker. With more than 30 years of industry experience, he started when he was 5, of course, spanning engineering, energy, IT, and executive consultant. Bob leverages his expertise to educate and inspire entrepreneurs, executives, and audiences around the world. He is going to talk about his journey of traveling entrepreneurship and his humble beginnings in the 1990s, working out of a 2-bedroom row home, transitioning through the dot-com boom, Y2K, and to Black Enterprise Top 100 lists in 2019. Love BE. Growing up in Baltimore projects amidst poverty and racial segregation, Bob overcame social and economic obstacles through his own rags to riches story to become a successful serial entrepreneur. You got to explain what this serial entrepreneur means to people. We just started learning the word entrepreneurial. So now we got to talk about serial entrepreneur. After being groomed by innovative industry leaders like IBM, DuPont, Procter & Gamble, Bob leveraged his expertise to establish and lead 3 companies: the Bith Group Technologies, an IT service provider; Bit Energy Inc., an energy services company; and through robertwallace.com, Entratech Learning Systems, which offers, we're going to talk about this, web-based training for women and minority business owners, which is so needed right now, especially right now when everybody's on lockdown. They need to learn the internet, and they need to know how to overcome issues when you have technology problems. Pulling from his real life experiences and extensive research, Bob has published 5 books. So one of the ones that I love is this one here, The Soul Food. But he's published 5 on wealth creation, strategic partnerships, emerging markets, entrepreneurship, and really it centers around faith too. He is busy writing several more. His books address the challenges. This is why I wanted you to come on. Faced by small, disadvantaged businesses and entrepreneurs, with an insightful approach that makes his writing equally compelling to large corporations with an entrepreneurial spirit. And so one of the first things I just really wanted to ask you is, I wanted you to explain to people and give people like courage and confidence, but explain the managing the ride principle. That's the one that caught me first when I opened the book. And how can entrepreneurs, African-American entrepreneurs, apply this today amidst COVID-19?
I think it may be a good idea, Pam, to give them some context for why I wrote Soul Food in the first place. I have found in my now almost 40 years of research in this area that there are different aspects to success for entrepreneurs, right? One is left side of the brain and the other is right side of the brain, okay? The logical side of the brain tells us or teaches us the importance of analysis, planning, execution. All those things are very, very important. But then there's the other side, which is, I think, it's the right side of the brain, which is more of the soft skills. And so what I found after I wrote Black Wealth, my first book I wrote, I felt that as I continued to study successful entrepreneurs, that the ones that were struggling or failing, they weren't failing because they didn't understand the hard skills. They had that down, but they were failing because they didn't understand the soft side of entrepreneurship, right? These principles of success that I saw. And so that was what drove me to write the book Soul Food. And so as I looked at these successful entrepreneurs, men and women, over now 40-year time frame,
wow,
there were certain principles that jumped out at me that people need to understand in order to be successful. And so the one that you mentioned was one that I call managing the ride. And what I'm suggesting there is that just as in life, we go through cycles, right? Things are good, they're bad, they're up, they're down, there's success, there's failure. So that is a reality of life. That is the process in which things happen in our universe. But the key to success is, how do you respond to the peaks, right? The success, the failure, the mountaintop, the valley experience. How do you respond? And what I'm suggesting in that principle is the people that I have seen that have been able to weather these storms, right? The viruses, the Great Recession in 2008, 2009, the crash in the 1980s, whatever you want, whatever it is. I mean, these crises, how do you manage that? And so managing the ride says that when whether times are good or whether they are bad, that my response is a stable response. So give you an example, Pam. So in periods where I'm making lots of money, right? And I've had those periods, right? You don't go out and spend all the money that you're making. You maintain a steady curve, a burn rate of how you spend and how you run your business. So when things do get bad, when you're in that valley experience, you still have resources that you can call upon to help you weather the crisis and to weather the storm. So you're picking the managing the ride principle is very, very important, particularly now in this crisis, because what we know in business, you and I and others who are in business, is that cash is king. Cash is king. As long as I have cash, I can fight another day. But the minute I run out of cash, I'm dead. I'm done.
You're done with
that's
no
important.
You have no options. And so one of the things of managing the RIDE principle is entrepreneurs that haven't done that. So they weren't a good steward over their resources. They will learn it now.
Yes, they will.
Because there's no choice. But how does, the second question I have talks about the T3. You talk about that in your book, the T3, that I think is time, treasure, and talent. Right.
Yep.
So talk about those 3 T's and how that applies today.
So people ask me all the time, are entrepreneurs, are they born or are they created? And I say the answer is both, right? There's some people who are born with the right skills, the right time, the right DNA, and it works for them. But there are others like me who have to work at it, right? So those of us who work at it, you're given 3 assets. You're given time, you're given talent, and you're given treasure, right? Time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right? Treasure is the stuff of life. Cash, money, real estate, cars, stocks, those kinds of things. And then there's talent. So all of us who are created, which is all of us by God, have these 3 T's. So what becomes critical is, how do you leverage those 3 T's, time, talent, treasure, right, to create value, to solve problems of humanity. And then when we're solving the problems of humanity, we then create the opportunity to create wealth. So as I look at, for example, in the urban centers, like in Baltimore, Washington, Detroit, I mean, all the urban centers, one of my areas of expertise is, how do we convert our cities into economic engines, right? That attract capital, that attract talent, and that attract ideas. I believe that the cities, the urban centers of America and the world, will be the drivers of economic opportunity and wealth creation in years to come. And so the time, talent, the 3T principle says that as an entrepreneur, you have to become a master at managing those 3 T's, because they're God-given. God gave them to you. Now, what do you do with them to create value by solving problems that which, when you solve problems, then you have the opportunity to create wealth. And that's why the 3 T's are so important. Because when I speak with impoverished neighborhoods or communities, you know, the assumption is, well, I don't bring much to the table. Well, that's not true. I disagree with that. You are made by God. Therefore, you bring value that is inherent to you. Now it's up to you to convert those 3 T's into an economic engine that drives value, that solves problems, and that creates wealth.
I love that. That's what we're here. We're here to solve problems. And in the urban centers, you talk about some of the problems. So school systems are a major problem that need fixing. Obviously, because of the coronavirus, we see that the health system needs fixing. What's another area that needs fixing, I guess you would say, if we had to do like 3 prongs?
Well, that's a great question, Pam. I think the starting point and the key point is changing how people think. Changing how they think. The Bible tells us, as a man or woman, I'll say man or woman. As they
think it.
So you and I, those of us who were raised in the projects, I think you said that, but I know I was raised in the projects.
I'm in Detroit, in Motown, so yeah. I went to the same school as Diana Ross, so yeah.
You know, there's a point where you get to, I know I did, where you pivot and you say, this quality of life is unacceptable. See, you got to get to the point where you say, yeah, I may be in this mess right now, but this is not how it's supposed to be. And so I would never accept this poverty. I would never accept this disrespect. So when you make that pivot in your mind, then your mind begins to drive you to solutions. You know, I always talk about the power of a dream. So when I was a kid in the projects, the best thing that happened to me, Pam, was I'm older than you are, and I remember desegregation of the schools in Baltimore, and I remember going from the projects to now I'm going to school with kids who were middle class and very well off.
Was that
So
the busing project?
that was busing. They
Oh.
use bus. They use all kinds of programs
Yeah.
Baltimore,
Yeah,
as you very segregated city, is still in many ways today. But what that did for me is it exposed me to a different way of life, a different view. So I was now in school with kids prior to integration. I was in school with kids who were all from the same neighborhood. We're all African American. We were all, resource constrained, and so that was my world. When we integrated and when I went to high school, I'm now with kids who are middle class, whose parents, had multiple homes and vacation homes, and they had lots of resources, lived in the suburbs. I had never seen this world before. But what did it do for me? What it gave for me was another data point that says, yeah, I may be living like this, but I want to live like that. So what do I do to bridge that gap, right? And that becomes the power of a dream. And so I think that we need to change the thinking, because as the man or woman thinketh in their heart, so are they. So if I can change thinking, so you now have a thinking of prosperity versus scarcity, then I think we can get people focused in the right direction.
And education is key.
Education is
very, very, very key, because in terms of where you actually went to school, when you graduated from high school, you went to University of Penn.
That's right.
School of Engineering. And then also too, you got an MBA from the Amos Tuck School of Business at Dartmouth.
That's right.
And also you have a doctorate of humane as well. So education is key. And that is part of the mind, the thoughts and the things that you're exposed to. I always say exposure creates desire. So you desired something different because you saw something different. And that is one of the main things. So what is the largest obstacle besides being raised, where you were talking about, like in the project, that you've ever come in business? Obviously, this may be one of the largest ones that we're facing right now, being shut down for going on maybe 6 weeks, 8 weeks, who knows? But what outside of this, how did 9/11 maybe affect your business?
Oh my goodness. So now being that we're on our IT side, we're heavy into government contracting. So many of my clients, are government agencies. So when 9/11 hit, of course, everything just shut down. It just shut down. So, you're confronted with having to possibly lay off your staff, reduce your workforce, change your strategy. The same thing happened in 2008, 2009, the Great Recession, when President Obama, right? It was the same dynamic, right? Because in moments of crisis, what happens is society kind of freezes. It kind of goes into a shock mode, right? And trying to figure out what to do. What do I do? What do I do? But see, therein lies the opportunity for us, those of us who are quick thinkers and fast on our feet. Because what we did from every crisis is there's a saying that says, do not let a crisis go unused or not taken advantage of. So in every crisis, my company and my team, we look for where's the opportunity. Okay. Well, I give you an example. In 2008, when President Obama came in, the Great Recession was in its height. What we said was, where's the opportunity? Well, the opportunity for us was in the emerging renewable energy space that President Obama has said, we're going to focus and invest money into solar, wind, batteries, electric vehicles, the whole thing. So, we're engineers. And so what we did was we said, okay, there's an opportunity here. There's a need, there's money, and there's a path. And so what we did was we pivoted. We stood at IT, but then we pivoted into energy. And therefore that crisis, which was 2008 recession, we were able to turn it into an advantage by creating another company in a different sector to create jobs and create wealth. And so every crisis, we need to be able to pivot, right? Because in that crisis, when that crisis is done, there'll be losers and there'll be winners. Every crisis we've ever had in human history, when you come out, there are losers, those who lost their way, and then there are winners, men and women who figured it out and said, okay, there's an opportunity here, and they marshal their resources and they pursue that opportunity. So this virus that we're in, the COVID-19, it's an opportunity. So we need to figure out, where's the opportunity for us as entrepreneurs?
Where's the strategy? What is the new strategy?
Absolutely. I mean, it is in COVID-19, we're looking at things like, for example, telehealth, right? So now, well, if you can't be in front of your doctor and you can't be in front of people, then how do we use technology like what you and I do using now to administer health solutions to our patients, right? Well, that is a whole new dynamic, a whole new process. Another opportunity that we're seeing, Pam, is in funeral homes, right?
Yes. Oh
Probably,
my God. Yes.
No one that you know passes during this period, because I have friends who've lost loved ones, but they can't see them.
Right.
They can't bury them. They can't, so how do you use, we're thinking, how do you use technology to help to create a virtual funeral for people?
That is so important. Well, there was someone that actually passed, O'Neill Swanson, who was in Detroit. Like, he did the funeral for Aretha Franklin, and the family did the Rosa Parks funeral. So they're a big funeral company, and they're like the epitome of it, right? They do all the celebrity funerals, and they do an excellent job. Well, Mr. Swanson passed. So everybody knew him, loves him, but we can't go to his funeral.
That's right.
This is a new day. I mean, if anybody's going to look for solutions, like, how do you handle a funeral? And he's gone.
Gone, yeah, absolutely.
And so now his family has to figure this out. We all have to figure it out. And that was one of the first things. It's like, there is an opportunity. Like, how do you have a virtual funeral? What do you do? I saw someone that had one, like, on Facebook Live, and they were doing that, but it was kind of weird because they had to have the mask on, so you couldn't really hear them speak. And so it is something that we're thinking about, or even people who are in hospice care, or people who are dying, and that you can't see them, the family can't see them. So how do you manage that? Do you walkie-talkie? I mean, so there are opportunities, because technology has to bridge that gap now.
It does.
So it is something. So one of the things that you're saying right now is that we have to pivot and have to think more strategic. So what if someone was laid off from their job, Dr. Wallace? And do you recommend them starting their own business? Or if so, what should they do first?
So I get asked that question a lot in terms of should someone start a business when they're in a dire or difficult financial situation? And my answer, if that is your only option at that time, then go do it. But what I recommend is, and I wrote this in my second book on Black Wealth, is it is difficult and a low probability of success to start a business when you are in a difficult economic situation. Yeah. Because it's difficult for you to focus and to use your creative energies
when you worry about food.
Yeah, when you food, or when you can't pay the rent, or when you can't pay the kids' tuition. It is difficult, not impossible, but it's difficult. And I would say to the listeners that you're not going to be at your best when you do that, because you're in a crisis. You're in a crisis or fight or flight kind of mode, and so you really need to. It's difficult to be your best. So I would say in those situations that the primary thing is to get stability and your cash flow to better meet your living requirements and your living needs. And then at that point, once that's stable, then begin looking seriously at your entrepreneurial endeavor or your business.
Okay. So they decide that they want to be an entrepreneur. So what's more important to do first? And I get this question a lot. Is it more important to craft out that business plan, or to strategically go after that first sale?
That's a great question. Now I'm gonna give you an MBA answer. Okay.
Okay.
It's both. It's both. Now here's why I say that. I think some people get trapped into paralysis by analysis.
Yeah.
So in terms of writing a business plan, they spend a whole lot of time and effort putting the plan together and doing their research and collecting the data and all that's great. I'm an engineer, I can appreciate that, okay? But what really matters is, how are you connecting with other people in a way that you understand the problem they have, and that you have a solution that will solve that problem? Because I will tell you this, Pam, when you're at a point where you're generating cash flow and you've got economic activity, then your ability to write a robust business plan will be enhanced tremendously.
That's right.
Cash is king. Cash is king. I can't say it enough. And so if you find a way where you can generate cash flow and get cash, to me, that's a priority over the analysis. But it's really both. But if you have to prioritize, you get the cash first.
That's true. That's true. But we want to warn people that don't go without a plan, because if you're just going after the sales, that's what they call just a hustle.
That's a good point, Pam. But Pam, I'm kind of old school. Sometimes you have to hustle.
Yeah.
Sometimes I know in my journey, Pam, in my journey, sometimes you have to hustle. There have been cases where, and this maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm saying to be in full transparency. There have been times in my journey where I had to go out on a limb and say that I could deliver something, a service or a solution, when I may not have had the solution 100% down.
Okay.
I had to, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I had to fake it.
Till you make it.
Before I make it. Now I'm not suggesting normal operation, not at all. What I am saying though is that there'll be opportunities presented to you and I in business that will require a stretch for you and I to make it happen. All right. And you may have 50% of what you need, but the other half you don't have it, but you think you can get it. Sometimes you and I have to take that leap of faith and say, pray about it as I do. I pray about it and then I go. And I'm saying that the hustle is part of the process, right? But it should become your normal operating mode. It should not be.
Right. Because you want to leave legacy for generations behind you. And so having a plan is really part of that as well. So doing both is thing. So let's talk about spiritual fortitude. You kind of talked about how you pray about it. I was listening today to Sarah Jakes, love Sarah Jakes. That is T.D. Jakes, Sarah Jakes Roberts' daughter. And she was saying the same thing about you don't have to wait for perfect conditions in order to move. And one of my friends tells me that I'm an activator. And so she says, they talk about how you have to cast the bread upon the water. He said, sometimes, Pam, you don't wait for it to be bread. You'll just cast that dough. So I was like, okay. I said, because, we got to start casting. We got to do something. Okay.
Amen.
So talk about spiritual fortitude and how that is played out in your business and in your life as well.
So of all the principles that I talk about in soul food, I would say that spiritual fortitude principle is probably the most important one. But if people never read any of the principles, if they got that one, I think they would be in pretty good shape. Now, what does that mean? It means the same thing that your mom and daddy and my mom and daddy and most of us and grandmama and granddaddy taught us over the years. And that is, you got to have a belief that your future will be better than your present, right? That's called hope. That's called hope. Now, how do you and I get hope? Well, we get hope because we have a belief system that internally makes us believe that, my future can be better than my present. What drives that energy and that reality is the spiritual fortitude. Now, I'm not talking about religion here, because last year I went on a 6-month world trip to work on my new book on global entrepreneurship. I visited 35 countries, 100 ports all over. Right, that book will be out hopefully next year. But what I learned, so it's not about religion, Pam. It's about believing that there is something greater than yourself, right? A force that's greater than yourself. However you want to look at it. I happen to be a Christian, and I'm proud of it. But I have friends who are Muslims and Jews and Hindus and Buddhists, and I have all kinds of relationships. They have a different belief system, but it is the idea that there's something greater than you. And so as a kid in the projects, my parents always taught us about that our future will be better than our present because there was a God who had the power to change circumstances and that he would make it happen. I remember Mama always would say, and we were sometimes paying, we didn't have any heat in the winter. We didn't have any food. We had rats and roaches. We used to go to bed dressed in coats to stay warm because we didn't have any heat in the winter. But my mother always say, Mama would always say, God will make a way. Now, what
That's the hope. That's the hope, right?
It's the hope. It's the hope, man. Because hey, where's God now? But if Mama says it, then it must be true. And so we're going to keep trying. We're going to keep processing. And so spiritual fortitude says that there is a force of good in the universe, that when you and I decide in our mind and spirit that we're not going to give up, we're not going to get negative, we're going to keep trying, we're going to keep processing, we're going to keep strategizing, and that ultimately, we will win. It's the belief that if I control the things that I have control over, right? And the other things that I don't control, I leave to the universe, then over time, if I can stay with it, I'll be successful. And that's why spiritual fortitude is so very important.
That was the one. That's the one I was tracking you down on. I said, I want you to talk about that. I said, that's the one. I said, there's nothing else. And we can't go over all 52. I said, but I wanted you to basically talk about that spiritual fortitude. That's part of your life and your business. That is that principle. So the last thing you talk about mumbles in the book.
Yeah.
So tell us a story about mumbles if you can, and then we'll kind of wrap up on that.
Sure. Yeah. We know each of us, all of us have challenges in life, and our childhoods have many of us have created various challenges. Well, mine were two. Well, there were many I had, but two particular. One, I was overweight as a child, and secondly, I had a speech impediment.
Really? Okay.
Okay. To stutter. I couldn't say my name. I was a mess, right? And so because of my speech impediment, I was given the nickname Mumbles. So you're probably too young to remember the Dick Tracy comic books. But in Dick Tracy, he was one of the comic book heroes. His nemesis was a bad guy named Mumbles, because when he talked, you couldn't understand him, so they called him Mumbles. So Mumbles became my nickname as a projects, right?
What a label.
Yeah.
How do you ever get over? Kids are so bad.
Childhood can be rough. But that became my nickname. And so I had to, go through childhood, having to deal with that. But again, these principles that we're talking about, even though I couldn't articulate them at that young age, they were being put to use in my own life, even as a young kid, because I was around people. My mother and my father were all positive people. My grandfather was a leader, in the church. And so I had these reference points to help me to navigate that period. But those are the struggles that we face in terms of self-worth, and self-respect. And so Mumbles, that was my childhood nickname, because I had a speech impediment. I stuttered.
And then at one point in time, there was like a miraculous, I'll let people maybe read it in the book, but there was a miraculous situation that happened and mumbles became no more.
That is true. That's true. Well, I had, when I was in school, they had speech classes that they would send us to. And I remember going to the classes, and it was quite embarrassing, because back in the old days in school, they would make an announcement. So they would say, all children in speech class number 459 report to class. So everyone all stand up who had to go to speech class, and all the kids would know that you were in speech class. That was not very good, but we were able to overcome that.
Yes. And then went on a scholarship and all that kind of stuff. So that is really, and then what a part of it you talk about in Mumbles is about the power of God and the power of prayer. So I'm going to let people really understand that spiritual fortitude, because we're looking at someone who's definitely not overweight, definitely is very articulate. And it's like, well, how did he overcome that? Right. Well, it's like those same principles that you can overcome stuff today.
Absolutely.
No matter what's going on, you
Absolutely.
use those same principles. Principles are that. You use the same principles to overcome things. So the last one, finally, from all you've seen and heard, what do you see in the future for African American entrepreneurs? You're probably working on that in your next book.
I am.
And talk about, is collaboration the new black, or is it always just been there? There's something that African Americans need to do more of than other communities, especially urban centers.
Absolutely. I think anyone who is in an environment that is antagonistic, that is again, not against you, but puts up roadblocks in your way. I think that anyone in that kind of environment needs to understand these principles. And so you mentioned how we can work together. I've got 2 new books coming out. One's called Let God Be God. Let God Be God. Using God's disruptive power to change your life and to change the world. Because that talks about what is the power source that you and I can call upon, right? For us to do not normal things, but great things. Right? And I give examples of men and women who have tapped into this power and who are doing amazing things around the world. So I talk about that. And then in my next book, which is on global entrepreneurship, this whole idea of collaboration, that is the asset. That is the asset of our generation, right? Because as I went on this world trip and I visited all these cities, I'm in Australia, New Zealand, China, Japan, Saudi Arabia, all these countries, right? In every city, what you would find this diverse group, particularly of young people, different colors, different religions, different backgrounds. But the one thing they had in common is they were collaborating. They were innovating. They were sharing ideas, and they were not restricted by color or religion or social economic level. They would just focus on the idea and what they could do to make the world a better place. And that energy just really encouraged me. And I saw that, Pam, in every city. Didn't matter. And these young people, they don't have the hangups that we had, that I had, I don't know about you, but I had in terms of being a baby boomer, right? They weren't hung up with, race and gender and class and all that. They were looking for good ideas. Who's smart? Who's doing something sexy and exciting? How can we and work together? And that is the energy, that is the asset for African Americans and anyone really, because this generation, Pam, they're not hung up on that stuff like my generation. They're not hung up. So
the collaboration is it. Collaboration is it. That is everything. Do you have the name of the new book yet?
No, I don't. I will have it soon. Now, the one that's the Let God Be God, that is the title, Let God Be God. And that'll be released probably in a month from now. So
that's perfect timing. Yeah. That is perfect timing. Let God be God.
We'll talk about it.
Okay, definitely. We definitely have to do that. We definitely have to do that and have technology working a lot more better too, so that we can actually do it live. But that is so good. I just thank you so much. There was one principle in there that I didn't ask you about, but it was kind of funny. It talks about the Groats Principle.
Oh, yes.
Right? I was like, I said, what's what? I said, I don't even have to know. I said, but explain it briefly, because that one was kind of like the comic relief for me when I first looked. I said, the Groats Principle. I was like, okay, after all this other deep stuff. So talk about that one real quick.
Well, it is when you live in the projects, right? One of the things you have to deal with, at least in Baltimore and Washington, you have these roaches in your house.
They got in Detroit too.
So I remember my parents, Pam, they would go out and they would find the strongest insecticide that they could find, right, to try to get rid of these roaches. And they would apply it, and so bad the house always smelled like roach spray, right?
Yeah.
And it would kill most of the roaches. But what I noticed is that no matter what they tried, no matter how strong the insecticide, there was this set of roaches that survived.
They would say, we ain't going down.
Yeah, absolutely. And they stronger and stronger and stronger. And so what I'm suggesting in this principle in a humorous way is that we're going to get hit with the enemy coming against us and trying to destroy us, trying to discourage us. The men and women that can survive those attacks consistently and repetitively, man, you are now creating super women and super men. In our community, we become super women and super men.
That, I love that. And I read that and I said, that's appropriate for today too. I said, we got to do it. We got to fight back. I said, we are not going down like that. We're going to survive. And that's that was it. And then thrive. And then thrive by letting God be God. There you go.
That's one thing our ancestors taught us. You think about it. Your mom and daddy, great mom and daddy, and so on. You can go back. One thing about them, they never gave up.
Nope.
They never
we wouldn't be here. Right.
We wouldn't be here. And they kept going. So what they tell us, as they talk to us through the ages of eternity, they say to you, they say to me, honey, son, don't give up. Daughter, don't give up. Son, don't give up. Keep going. That's the message that our ancestors give us, is they speak to us.
Yes, they do. They do. Give us hope and give us hope.
Don't give up. Don't stop fighting.
So Robert Wallace, robertwallace.com. Is that where people want to keep in touch with you? robertwallace.com. And is there any other things that you want to let people know? I know that you put your head in the ring for mayor.
Well, so on the mayor thing, I've been thinking about that for many, many years. And so we put together a campaign committee, and we're looking at evaluating my choices in that area. So I will be making a decision one way or the other very, very soon. But I'm very serious about making Baltimore the greatest city on the planet. And so,
amen.
Leadership.
That is it. Baltimore became like the place where people really, their eyes were on last year when they were saying, oh, that was like a bad place. But it is on the comeback. So
it is.
And like you said, it begins with the thought. So thank you for your books, your new books, your old books. I mean, that's one of the beauty of words, that it spoke to me. Like, this came out in 2000, but it's relevant today.
It is. It is.
And it'll be relevant forever.
And we're doing tradition of that too. We're taking each of the principles, and we're diving deep in each principle to really explain it to people in a very productive way. I
love that. I love it. That's perfect. That is perfect. Well, you know what? Yeah, I am here to support you. Whenever we come out of lockdown and you have events around this book or whatever, you know I'm there. Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right. And Speakers Magazine is supporting you as well. So definitely, I'm going to make sure that we put you in Speakers Magazine as well.
I so appreciate that. Thank you so much.
All right. All righty. Thank you so much. Well, we have just finished our interview with Dr. Robert L. Wallace. You can reach him by going to robertwallace.com, find out more information about him. He has a Facebook page as well. He's on LinkedIn. He's all over. He's in Baltimore, and just really enjoy speaking with him. Read his books. He's got 5 of them. He's got another one coming out in a month. So make sure you go to Amazon and pick them up. All righty. Readers are leaders. All righty. Take care. Thank you so much, Dr. Wallace.
Thank you. God bless you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.